Hey guys, Justin Rivas here. I want to talk a little bit about my vlogging rig and the tools I use for creating my vlogs. I'm up to number 43 of vlogs, and I've, kind of worked through a few different things, but this is the rig that I'm using these days, and just want to talk a little bit about it. So from top to bottom here, we have the Rode VideoMic Go, and I just finished recording a bit of a review on that, a little bit more in depth. I've got a Panasonic G7. For a lens, I'm using the Panasonic 12 to 35 2.8, and then I have the Joby Gorillapod Focus with ball head. Now, how do I feel about this rig overall? Well, as I said in my kind of overall review of this microphone, I really like this Rode because it's fairly inexpensive at less than 150 bucks in Canada. It doesn't need a battery, so you don't have to remember to turn it off and on, and the audio quality has been good enough for what I needed. A little bit of reliability issues, but lately it's been working great for me. The Panasonic G7, how do I feel about this? I really like this camera. I find that having 4K is awfully handy at times for doing some things. I don't record everything in 4K, but there are some things that I do. I really like the time-lapse feature of this. It works really well. The flip-out screen is awesome, and it's touchscreen, which is super handy. The camera itself is very light, so I like that part of it. If I do need to take photos, it works fine for photos. I did a bunch of photos while I was in Mexico, and that worked out pretty good. So overall, I would say I'm very happy with the camera itself. Now, if we compare it to something like a Canon 70D or the new 80D, how do I feel about this camera versus those cameras? I think those cameras focus a little bit better than this does. With the kit lens, which I'll talk a little bit more in a minute, it's a little bit slow to focus. It always does find the focus, it just takes a little bit. So the Canons, I would say, focus better, but on the other hand, they're much heavier and they don't shoot 4K. And I find the 4K can be really handy for a lot of things. Like, for example, when I'm driving around in my car, rather than constantly having to zoom in and out to change the perspectives, what I can do is simply just turn on 4K, hit record, and then I can, in post, kind of zoom into certain areas or potentially pan or provide a little bit of motion or do all sorts of things. That's a nice little bit of flexibility. So, there's that. Let's talk about lenses. I have the Panasonic 12 to 35 on here. I am actually borrowing this lens. I am planning to purchase it though. How do I feel about this lens? Well, this lens has made focusing a lot better. Now, it's not a cheap lens. This is a nice piece of glass, but I really like it. That's a nice little range, 12 to 35 on a 35 millimeter equivalent. That's 24 to 70 standard. 2.8 means that you can blur out the background lots if you need to. Overall, it's been very solid. I wiped out with this lens and it was fine, so that was good. So I'm happy with the lens. Now, the thing I'll say about this overall package though is depending on the kinds of lenses you need for doing video, this body may not be your best option. Now, getting the Panasonic G7 compared to some of the Canon 70D or 80D is much cheaper in that in Canada here, this camera with kit lens is like 900 bucks, whereas if you wanted like an 80D with a similar kind of kit lens, I think it's over 2 grand, so a lot more money. The only thing though is if you just wanted it for the body and you were buying your own lenses, if you want an ultra wide angle for micro four thirds like this Panasonic, your options are basically like $1,000, whereas something like the Canon, you can get an ultra wide for I think like 500 bucks. And there's a lot more lenses available for the Canon. So if you know the kind of lenses you want beforehand, take that into consideration when you're comparison shopping for cost. Like, I want to get an ultra wide, but it's really expensive to even get just like, there really is no cheap ultra wide for micro four thirds. So just depending on the lenses, that's something to think about too. Micro four thirds doesn't have as many lens options, so you're typically a little bit more limited. So I will say that, but overall, that's side rant. I'm quite happy with this package. I started off with the cheaper Gorillapod, which I actually have on the floor right here. Oh, I'm gonna knock this off. Yeah. This was the Joby Gorillapod SLR Zoom, and I don't know if I really just had a defective one or maybe it was from the wipeout, but I think in general it just couldn't really handle the weight and the stress of what I was putting it through vlogging. And so this is actually the one that Gorillapod sent me a new one because I took the other one back because it was all cracked and didn't really work anymore. It completely worn out after not that long. But since I've got this one, this is like the kind of Mac Daddy of their Gorillapods. It's like, I think 180 bucks in Canada with the ball head. But I will say these ball heads are really, really nice. When I did this, I didn't have the ball head on it. And just depending like what kind of angle and you put it at, having the ball head and being able to kind of straighten out your camera by just like a quick, simple little turn is actually super, super handy, depending where you're mounting it. So I would say you definitely want to get one with the ball head. And overall, I would say I'm just quite happy with this tripod. It's really handy. I use it in the car, I use it outside of the car, I use it holding, I put it everywhere. And it just seems to take the abuse quite well. So there you have it. That is basically my vlogging rig, except sometimes I use this, my DJI Phantom. I'm working on getting a license so that I can fly it in the city, which I'm really excited about that coming. But yeah, this is my main slice. And that's a little bit more about it. Any questions? Drop a comment below. I'm happy to answer them. Cool. Peace.